Okay, now you're good.
Oh, with the,
Yeah, now you're good.
okay.
Sorry, John.
Good morning. It is December 3rd at 8:30, and we are going to start the Economic Development, Historic Preservation, and Environmental Conservation Committee. And if we could have the attendance taken, Ms. Robertson?
So I have Dennis Brennan, Seth Goldstein, Brian Backus, Isma Alam, Kevin Walsh, Michelle Martinelli, Yasmin Syed, Stan Faminsky, and Chairman Delarada.
Very well. And on the first order of business are public concerns. Do you know if we've gotten any emails, or is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak?
I don't have any, but we did want to note for the record that you received a letter from the Hexham Garden neighbors with concerns about 1950 Townsend. The town did receive this letter. I believe actually the building inspector went out and looked at the home, but I will follow up this morning and make sure that that was looked at.
Okay, and as the 1950 Townsend, do you know if the ownership is actively trying to sell that property, or is anybody from the town in communication with them?
I'll check. I mean, the address rings bells for me. I just can't off the top of my head remember what the deal is with that.
Okay. All right, very well. And then that moves us on to the minutes, and we have minutes of May 7th, 2021. Are there any additions or modifications to those minutes?
Yes, John. First of all, I'd like to make a motion that we, approve the minutes. I do have a comment. Once we second that.
I didn't hear. Could you turn it? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was making a motion that we approve the May 7th minutes, but I do have a comment. I don't know if you want to wait for a second and go over comments, or you want me to just go ahead.
No, certainly. Go ahead.
Okay. Page 3, second paragraph. Ms. McGraw, it starts out the paragraph. It says at the end, discuss the code as anticipated for the legalization of tobacco. That should either be cannabis or marijuana.
Okay.
And that's the only comment I had.
All right. Very well. We don't need to make any changes there, do we, Ms. Robertson?
No, we can, that can be a friendly amendment.
Okay. All right. I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And those minutes will carry unanimously, and that brings us to the minutes of October 1st, 2021.
Again, I apologize, but I'll state that we move the minutes for approval, but I do have a comment. I was present. I'm not listed as an attendee of the meeting.
Okay, we will add that. Anything else? Are there any opposed to approving the minutes of October 1st, 2021? All in favor?
Aye.
And that will pass unanimously. And that brings us lastly on the minutes to November 5th of 2021.
Again, I apologize. I'll move that we adopt the minutes with one modification. I was also present at that meeting. I don't think Laura likes me anymore or something there.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
I think you cut copy and paste. You use the ones from I think the August meeting where I wasn't present. That was the only meeting I missed, so it carries forward, everyone.
Yeah, so with the board's approval, we'll actually just go through the list of attendees on the second meeting and make sure it's correct.
Very well. Are there any opposed to approving the November 5th, 2021 minutes? Seeing none, those minutes will pass unanimously, and then that brings us to the COVID-19 updates.
Okay, and I did just want to note for the record that Councilwoman McGraw and Matt Yaddo joined our meeting. So I don't have anything in particular for COVID-19 updates. I encourage my staff to get the booster. Many of them have. Actually, Clark's not at the meeting this morning because it's his post-booster. I don't feel good. He does not feel good. So, But yeah, they're working through their boosters so that we can keep continuity and keep people in our department and keep serving the public. So besides from that, I think we're doing pretty good on COVID-19 procedures and stuff in town hall. For the resolutions, I can bring this up on the screen. Clark and I have been getting a fair number of questions about 540 Gasner because it hit the market as a for sale parcel. I included a letter from the owners offering for the town of Niskayuna to accept it as donation, and I included a map. This property, not everything shown on the map is very difficult, almost impossible to access. It's landlocked currently, and it would be really hard to put the road there. Couple things. It's adjacent to the City of Schenectady's Woodlawn Nature Preserve, which on the other side of Fillmore Avenue, like we have our Stanford Park, which is deed restricted. So I don't know if, I'm just gonna go to the map, if the Schenectady side's deed restricted, but there may be actual issues with it being on that side of the City of Schenectady. And then on top of that, there's New York State designated wetlands on the parcel and in the right of way where you would have to build the road and the buffer. So you would have to work potentially through deed restrictions and New York State wetlands, which is extremely, extremely difficult, on top of the fact that it's a long road that would have to be built to access this, and you couldn't fit that many parcels on here. So I know that there was some interested in developing it, but it's very, very not friendly to development. And if you guys remember, it's been a while since we talked about it, but there's these little infill parcels over here. I don't know if you can see my cursor up there, like this little guy. These are little infill parcels. The county deeded all these big parcels and roads to us with a deed restriction that it remained forever wild, because this is the Stanford Park area. And we've been accepting donations of these infill parcels because it can't be developed. I'd say probably 2 or 3 years ago, I think we accepted these 4 and this one around that 510 Fillmore. So I feel like in the spirit of what we were trying to do down here, I think it makes a lot of sense to accept this parcel. It's something like what happens, with the ones that go on Schenectady County's auction. People think that it's great. They buy them up and then realize they can't be developed. I think that this one fits right into the Schenectady Woodlawn Nature Preserve and our Stanford Nature Preserve, and it makes a lot of sense for us to take it so that it's not causing problems with people who think that they can develop it. But that's just something that came in a day or 2 ago. Clark and I have been working on it for, I would say, a couple weeks, but I know this is new to you. So I just put it on the agenda to get your ideas, thoughts. It's, I think, a fairly simple procedure for accepting it. And I don't know if Paul Briggs has joined yet, but that's what I have on that one.
And who's the owner right now?
It's Mr. and Mrs. Yee. They're, the letter came from Mr. Yee.
All right. And what are they proposing, what type of transaction?
A donation.
Okay. It sounds like it, I don't see any reason not to.
Hey, Laura, do we know if there's any encroachment from any of those neighbors along the border of the property?
If you look at the aerial, there's a little bit. It does happen over time. Down in like the 605, 613 area, there seems to be a little encroachment. Can you see it? Like in here. A little bit. It's not terrible. Actually, up here it looks like it's worse.
So you don't think there's much for future use on that parcel?
Well, the only other thing that you could do, which is also kind of complicated and expensive, is you could see if every single neighbor along Fillmore Ave wanted to buy that and extend their backyards.
Mm-hmm.
But they couldn't develop it. They could just have a bigger backyard.
Right. What do you think, Mr. Walsh?
Sounds like a lot of work. If the neighbors, some might want to, and and others probably wouldn't want to. If you got it for free, why bother buying it, I guess,
Right.
especially if you know it's going to be forever wild. So probably, I would suggest you just accept it, probably. Right?
Yeah, it does seem to make sense. Why don't we go ahead and do that?
Okay. So if Paul Briggs is joined, or when I could get a chance with him, I'll see what his thoughts are for next steps on that. And then the other thing I have for action, although it's I got to get a little more details for you guys, is we submitted our stretch code to New York State to adopt the stretch code. I know we've been talking about it for months. Did get submitted. And the state has identified one area in the stretch code that is not consistent with the fire code. And so they are offering municipalities that have adopted the stretch code 2 ways of adjusting the adoption in order so that there isn't a conflict in the codes. And I attached their examples. So essentially they take one section of the fire code and apply it to the stretch code, which it's so minor.
Okay.
It's like the most minor thing ever, but you can't adopt codes with conflicts. So they want us to go through and fix that. If we can do it without the full process, great. But otherwise, I think it's the public hearing to amend the local law. Yeah.
Okay, very well.
I don't think that impacts our adoption timelines for it or our rebate of $5,000 for it.
That's good to hear.
Okay. And for the presentation, again, Clark sends his apologies. He is recovering today. But I did attach the 2022 minute meeting calendar, which Brian was helping me in November, because November is the weirdest month ever this year. Instead of elections being the first Tuesday, it's the second Tuesday. And so the early voting wipes out the whole first week of November, which really squishes our meetings together. But I think if we have, the Economic Development Committee meeting, I'm hoping by November 2022, we could have it in the Schaefer room. That won't interfere with the early voting. So I've got the EDHB meeting dates on there. They're fairly standard. If anybody had any questions or if we could adopt them, it's up to you guys.
Okay, looks good to me.
Okay, so I will move forward with those dates. In my discussion items, I wanted to bring up we adopted the
I'm sorry, Laura, can I just go back for 1 second?
sure.
As it relates to the calendar,
Oh, yep.
I know that Supervisor-elect Puccioni was given the proposed calendar the other day. So we might want to wait for some feedback from her.
So this is just for the Economic Development Committee dates, but yeah, I mean,
I know that.
yeah.
I know that.
yeah, okay,
But I
that's
think
fine.
if she's got thoughts on times. I think some of the incoming folks have expressed concern about time of day and other things as it relates to these meetings. I don't know if she's going to make any changes, but I do think she has given it some thought. And before this group makes any motion without the input of the incoming supervisor, I would suggest, I have no say anymore, but I would suggest perhaps waiting on that.
That does make sense, and we do have our incoming supervisor present here at Town Hall, so we're happy to see that, and we can go over that and talk about that, Jamie, and either after the meeting or shortly thereafter. Yes, thank you, Ms. McGraw.
And I'm going to need a copy of that calendar because I got to get the calendar set up for the webpage
Okay.
for next year.
So far, the only group that's actually adopted it is the CAC, though. So again, we should wait until most of the boards have said, okay, but I'll make sure you can have the draft and I'll make sure I get it to you timely. Okay, so we'll wait on that and we'll bring that back in January. So the next step under discussions, the letter to the Cannabis Board, when we did the proposed opt-out of the cannabis retail dispensaries and on-site consumption. The next step for that is that you have to send a letter to the Cannabis Board. So I just wanted to make sure I had that on the agenda so we don't forget. Passing the local law isn't the last step. So I just got to get with Paul Briggs and Elena and Chief of Police and make sure that we get that out.
All right, and does that come from our town attorney or from the planner?
So New York State has good forms. I'm not sure who it comes from, but I'll go
right.
find the New York State form, and it's probably the supervisor.
Very well.
So, and this is a carryover for last meeting, the building safety and adopting the code of conduct. ISMAT sent out, I thought, a really good first draft of code of conduct. I shared it with my staff, who very much appreciated the work that she did and had some comments that we submitted back to her not very long ago. So I think if we just go back and forth, ISMAT, that's kind of up to you when we want to, bring it forward to everybody, but I'll keep it on here for now. I appreciate the work you did on that.
Yes, as soon as you think you've got a draft that you're comfortable with, we'll move along.
Actually, I did look at that. Laura, thank you. Your staff made some really wonderful comments that make sense. So I thought that maybe we can present that in January. We would like the supervisor-elect to have a chance to look at that too and comment on that.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. I'll put it for January.
Yep.
And also a carryover for last month, the CCA Administrator negotiations. We put the switch to Juul on hold. I attended a meeting with a variety of the different communities that were all signed up in the same contract as us to be the CCA with Mega. And they are advocating that we try to continue with Mega and get a more local person to supply the CCA with renewable energy, at a good cost to our residents, at a cost savings to our residents. So I have noticed, and it could just be because I'm not completely plugged in here, but the meeting that I attended was largely residents that were interested in the CCA and interested in making it a viable thing for the capital region. There was a member from Kinderhook, who's one of the communities that we joined in the CCA with. But what I see lacking in the CCA right now is that there's no regular meeting of all of the communities that have enrolled. Like, there's no regular meeting of staff people of the towns. Like, you don't see a member of Bethlehem and a member, a member of the Bethlehem Planning Department, or a member of the City of Albany's, comptroller's office or whatever. There isn't a group of people who actually can enact the letters and things together. And I don't know where that got lost. And it's not like I can take something else on. But what I was thinking of is at least finding the contacts for everybody who's in the CCA and seeing if there's a way to at least get everybody on the same page with what's happening now.
Certainly.
So that was what I noticed from the meeting that I went to.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
It's strange. Like, we have people from Niskayuna that go to that meeting because they care and they want the CCA to go forward, but there isn't any people that can actually make the municipal decisions at those meetings. And they're lovely people and they definitely have good plans, but there's definitely like a disconnect between who can enact these local laws and move the CCA forward and who's meeting. And there used to be that Capital Region Steering Committee, but it seems to have broken down into residents that are trying to make sure that best practices are used. And then I would think probably a separate group of the municipalities meeting regularly to make sure the CCA is moving forward. But there isn't as far as I can tell, there isn't a group of municipalities meeting regularly to make sure that the CCA moves forward.
Huh. You think you can pull that together?
I don't know. I can try.
All right. Thank you.
It's important, and the town can get, again, some rebate grants for doing that. So I'll try, but I can't promise you. And then this one will just, I know we talked about pulling this together in January, but the 2023 Niskayuna Comprehensive Plan, I'll try and do some work on that at the end of the month, but it may be more likely that the bulk of the work gets done in January, and then we're appointing people like in February, just by the way that the holidays and workloads are shaking out. Yeah. Oh, I am so sorry. Yeah, that doesn't need to be there anymore. Yes. And then, thank you. I know we've had discussions before about a dumpster enclosure code and the requirements for both existing dumpster locations in our multifamily housing apartments and other types of commercial residence, and how the code can apply. Well, the code as of now, any new construction says that all dumpsters have to be enclosed. Some of the properties that we have in Niskuna are pre-existing non-conforming, and so I know I talked with our legal department about whether or not the code can be applied to, I mean, essentially dumpsters that existed prior to the enactment of the site plan application process for the code. It probably can't go backward, but there is a different section of code that we could potentially use, which I've kicked around a little bit, and I can bring it up again and send it out to Paul Briggs and see what he thinks about it for the dumpster enclosures.
And the ones that are pre-existing are not, they don't want to cooperate with enclosing their dumpsters?
I mean, we are building out there, and they'll do some things. Like we've talked about, a particular area where we mentioned to them that, moving from their property into adjacent residential properties, and they put up a picket fence. It wasn't a true dumpster enclosure, but I believe some of that fence may have been taken down, and it's not a true dumpster enclosure. Like
Mm-hmm.
when the planning board looks at them now, they're typically like chain link fence that go all the way around with a gate, or cinder block, or things that really actually truly keep the garbage where the garbage needs to be. But some of them are a little bit different. Like in this instance, some of them are garbage cans and not even dumpsters. So it kind of depends. But the legal ability to make a true enclosure is probably not going to work on pre-existing non-conforming lots, but there is an ability through a different section of the code, and I apologize, I don't have it with me this morning, but it's just property maintenance type of thing, which would require them to do more if the garbage is continually swirling around the adjacent properties.
Okay, and I think we had an issue with one of our residents and dumpster enclosures recently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And has that been addressed at all?
I was asked to bring it up at the meeting.
All right.
I don't actually even know the full details of the incident,
Okay.
but I mean, if
All
it's
right.
a garbage thing and the inspector needs to go back out, I can certainly send him out.
All right. So we've just got to figure out if there's anything that we can do to contain the garbage cans and or dumpster.
Right. And per code, you definitely can't allow your garbage to be free and
Right.
blowing onto neighbors' properties and stuff like that. That's absolutely 100% against code, and it doesn't matter if you're non-conforming. But requiring them to build the perfect normal dumpster
Yeah.
enclosure may be hard.
And then enforcing their cans blowing around probably isn't easy either.
Well, anytime there's a violation, the building inspector can go out and say, you're in violation, you have to address it. We run into this though, we run into it with parked cars and stuff. Parks cars in the front yard and things. The building inspector goes out and says, you're in violation, you have to move your car within 24 hours. Or you're in violation, you have to address this garbage within 24 hours. It gets addressed. They're no longer in violation. They don't go to court. They don't pay fines. But then 3 days later, they're in violation again. And one of the things that we've been trying to deal with these maybe serial offenders is put some kind of a violation out that says, you're a serial offender of this, and if we see it again, it's an automatic fine rather than a notice in violation. I don't even know if our code allows us to do that or not, but that I think is the only way to get these things that can be taken care of within 24 hours, but then happen again,
Yes.
to stop happening.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any additional comments or concerns on that? Okay. Off to our advisory boards.
So I haven't put out any notices for the advisory boards recently. They're fair, even though there's the list of vacancies, they're fairly well stacked and well attended, but there's still vacancies on, I think, every single board, if if anybody knows anybody who's interested in helping the town of Niskuna.
Laura, I'm going to do another newsletter or e-blast in January. I know Dennis has a couple of positions he needs filled. And there's a couple open employee positions that got to be done too. So just remind me, or I'll send out an email before I do it.
Okay, because those have been effective. I'd say every time you send them out, we get one or two,
Oh, good.
and that's good because
Yes.
people move out of town. People volunteer for a different committee and get overtaxed. All sorts of things happens to the people on our advisory board. So awesome. Thanks, Seth.
Seth, when are you planning to do that? Can you talk to me before doing that?
I usually send out an email to all the department heads before and the town council people.
Okay,
But
got
I
it.
figured I'd wait until January when the new board members were seated. So
Oh, perfect, because I'll have a position too. Thank you.
Okay, so I is the Knott Street area improvement progress, and I did finally go back and summarize all. It was almost 30 comments that we got for our improvement plan that would be adjacent to the Knott Street corridor. So the really focusing in on the intersection of Clifton Park and Crescent Drive, and I don't know if you guys remember, there was some treatments to Via Del Mar and some proposed mini roundabouts for traffic calming. And when I summarized the comments, like 22 out of the 26 were opposed to the mini roundabouts. I really didn't read any opposition to changes to the Clifton Park and Crescent Ave sea of pavement over there. So that was encouraging. I can do a final last plan with MJ, and then what I want to do is bring that plan. I know Broken Inn is getting very close to opening. I went inside, and it's very cool. Like, it's very cool on the inside. I think people like it. And he's thinking about, not now, but in the future, like looking at what, how we can bring life to the sidewalks out there and have some tables and things. And the county is still moving forward with their project. I think it looks like potentially construction in the spring now. So I'm thinking, like, if there's all these interests, if we can get them all together with some plans that have been vetted through the public and see if we can get some ideas for how it could get paid for and how we can make that area better. So I've been working on that the last couple of days.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about the Broken Inn coming along, and I'm excited to get that open. That's going to be great.
His sign and awning weren't ready when the planning board took a look at it. He's bringing it back to the planning board on December 13th, but even his sign and awning plan looks cool.
Excellent.
I'm very excited about it. So for planning board, we talked about this at the last meeting. Taco Bell renovations were approved. You'll see those going in probably here in the next month or two. The lot line adjustment on Pierce Road was approved. I've got the drawings on my desk upstairs. Eastern Parkway is scheduled for tentative approval on December 13th. We're still working through some of the landscaping and facade on that building, but it's really coming along. So December 13th looks reasonable. Still got some engineering to do on that as well for stormwater.
Is the Architectural Review Board involved in that one?
Yeah, heavily.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep. And the big one that I put in your packet, because I'm just guessing that you may get the most questions about it, it's about to get mailed out to all residents within 200 feet, is the proposed application for 20 townhomes between CVS and WRGB. I'll just share my screen again. So it's been at the planning board for a little while, but the planning board can't call for a public hearing until it's considered a complete application, and it's not complete because it had to be denied because townhomes require a decent amount, well, a very large amount of area variances the way this proposal is made. So that's proposed to go to the ZBA on December 15th. The letters to adjacent residents will go out this Friday, so today, and people are invited to comment. The thing that happens when the public hearing is held at the zoning board first and not the planning board is that a lot of people come to speak about planning board concerns, not really understanding the difference between a planning board and a zoning board. So I would expect high attendance at the zoning board. And the zoning board doesn't have to take action at each meeting. I think we're probably, because it's such a thick, heavy amount of variances, and I expect public comment, is to start working through the initial issues, push back, and then probably wouldn't see action until January. But it could happen. That's just my recommendation to them. They don't have to take action in a single night.
So there was a proposal similar to this 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And how much different was that proposal than this? I think that one was,
So
Oh,
that one was,
denser?
so that one was 50 apartment units and commercial space. This one is 20 single family dwellings, but they are, at my old job, we'd call them 0 lot lines. Because the lot line goes right through the building. So they're owned, they're not rented, they're ownership properties. But they have like a shared roof. They're a duplex. The line goes right through the middle. They own their yards, but they typically have a homeowners association that helps them with maintenance. And
so it would be similar to Oakmont,
yeah,
Hummingbird
yes,
Manor?
it is.
Okay.
Oakmont was an average density development.
Okay.
The Conservation Advisory Council has looked very thoroughly at this, and it's an R2 zone, and R2 zones don't allow an average density development, but they would like for the town, if we are okay with the concept of townhomes rather than single family homes, which things in our comprehensive plan and stuff do say we need that diversity of housing. Like these, the floor plans for these is all the living can be done on a single floor. So aging in place, walkability of our downtown, all of those things are nice. But they did want us to stick as close as we possibly can to our average density development code, which is how we built the ones at Oakmont. And so they feel the density on this is still a little too high. They're asking the zoning board to look at the number of buildings on this one. But so the zoning board will take a look at that on December 15th. If you guys had any questions, reach out to me, or, we can talk about them here. It's up to you.
Okay.
This is, just to give you a sense of what the zoning board has to look at, why this meeting is so complicated, is this is the number of variances they need. It's something like 70. Anything in red is an area variance.
Oh, boy.
And attached in the packet, which I know I sent it out to you guys late, but you can peruse it later. This is their kind of summary of what's going on. And then they also have their traffic generation. It is R2, so as of right, they can put single family homes. They can do a subdivision of single family homes there. And so their traffic tends to compare what it would look like if they develop single family homes versus duplexes. Duplexes, per the national standards of traffic generation, tend to generate less traffic at peak AM and PM hours than single family homes, which is really what their traffic study shows. I think that's all I've got on that one, unless you guys had questions. The other thing the planning board have been working on is Market 32 is adding some additional pickup signage. Planning board's been seeing this a lot. You guys probably have noticed this. The world's changed a little. Picking up your groceries rather than shopping for them yourself has become kind of a big deal. And so they're creating all these stalls across all our big box stores for picking up. So Market 32 is working on some signage for that. The Rivers Ledge Senior Apartment Complex, that plan was in your packet last year. We haven't got an update to it, but we'll continue to discuss any developments with that. I know I saw the newspaper article on it. So that's a big second part of Rivers Ledge that has been submitted. And then the last thing is I know you guys have asked a couple times, the Capital District Jewish Holocaust Memorial did request a time extension, I think, which we can all understand. During COVID, it was very difficult to go out and try and get donations from people when most people were just trying to survive the times. So they are asking for a time extension that was submitted to the planning board, I think about 4 days ago. And we'll have that for their meeting. Zoning board, the December 15th meeting is going to be a long one. It's got 6 cases. 5 of them are residential, and the 6th one is the one that I just talked to you about from the planning board. It's going to be a long meeting. I didn't put any specific grants updates on here. If you guys had any questions on any of them, happy to talk about them. Still trying to close out the final paperwork on the aqueduct docks and the Mohawk Watersheds grant. We'd love to close them out by December 31st.
And do we have an agreement worked out with the rowing club?
No, but we definitely need to work on that.
All right.
Yeah.
And who would be the point person for that?
I mean, so she's not here, and I hate, and but
Okay.
Elena is the one that does the.
Mhm.
Paul. And that's up to Paul. But like, I think it's what needs to happen is a standard agreement for our clubs, which I thought we made, gets rolled out to them. That's way beyond Laura's wheelhouse, though.
All right.
I don't make negotiations with sports clubs.
We'll get it done.
Yeah. But I really think that that's timely. The more you bring that up, the better, John.
Yes, I agree.
And then, so Complete Streets has a couple of, I think, good items. We're reaching back out to the schools. The schools got the new superintendent, and we had been working really closely with them on their improvements to make sure that they had complete streets. So I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of her and see if she's on board with some of the things that we had talked about with the previous superintendent. But the thing that was kind of exciting is that they've been working with the county, which I think hopefully they were submitted yesterday, on proposals to the Transportation Improvement Program, which is the federally funded funds that come from across the nation to our Capital District Transportation Committee, and then they go through an evaluation program across all the counties and towns within the Capital District. So by no means, obviously, does a submittal to the county or to the CDTC mean things, but the county submitted a couple things in Niskayuna, definitely gave us some good attention. Some improvements to Grand Boulevard, including sidewalks, which we had identified in our ADA transition plan as our number one grant priority. The county came to the same conclusion on their own, which is super cool, and have submitted a proposal for sidewalks on Grand Boulevard. So if anybody, so hopefully that's in there. And then the other thing they want to do is some traffic calming on Grand Boulevard and repaving, and then repaving Knott Street and adding high visibility crosswalks and updating the sidewalks for ADA. So all of those things are actually very helpful to our ADA transition plan.
Mhm.
I'm very hopeful that at least one of the proposals gets chosen during the TIP process, and I will go to the meetings and do my best to help.
Excellent.
Tree Council was looking for ordering trees in 2022. They did a walkthrough at the Overlook Park subdivision yesterday. I know you had questions about that, John. The subdivision was approved with a certain amount of clearing and trees that the Tree Council had walked and chosen to remain with the initial developer. It was then sold, and the new developers wanted to change the clearing and take down some trees that had been marked by the Tree Council. And I completely agree that the code is pretty onerous when this type of situation happens. But there wasn't really any gray area. If they wanted to take down trees that were marked by the Tree Council, the code says that they have to pay the value of the trees. We did go out and take a look at it, and they certainly have the right to bring that subdivision back to the planning board and change the limits of clearing, and then there isn't an issue. But I think it's okay, or it seems to be okay. Sort of left everybody unhappy when we went out and marked the trees. So the trees that are supposed to be retained are marked out there. The homeowners are going to do their best to save them. There's still a decent amount of trees that have to come down because of the grading and stuff that needs to be done. So it's a little bit of a give and take situation, but we'll see how it goes.
And I think they met with some people from the Tree Council, the landowners did yesterday.
Yesterday, yes. I think that there's value to a very difficult code in that, it makes leverage. So when you go out there, they're like, we just want to take this tree down. And it's like, well, this is the code. And then it's like, okay, the tree can stay. And I mean, we're not talking about little trees. We're talking about like 2.5 foot diameter oak trees out there that we're trying to get people to save.
So
But
these trees were marked to be saved by the prior landowner?
by the Tree Council with the prior landowner, correct.
But that doesn't necessarily run with the land, does it?
It doesn't run with the land, but it does run with the development of the land.
Okay.
Yeah. It may be worth a discussion. I don't want to make the code too easy, because obviously these big trees and things are very important to our neighborhoods and our communities and our habitats. But it might not be terrible to look at that code and see if there can be some wiggle room or negotiations. Like, if a tree that gets marked by the tree council gets taken down, maybe they're required to plant 2 street trees in the immediate vicinity, or something that can be enforced a little bit easier than like that type of situation. I don't know, but I do know that that was tough.
Now, after let's say they were to do their development, leave the trees there, they get their certificate of occupancy, couldn't they then go and cut the tree down after that? Or
They can. But they can do it under the land development. Like, the land would have to be stabilized, the SWIP would have to be closed, the subdivision would have to be closed. And then there isn't anything in our code that restricts people from taking large trees down. People certainly do it. The Tree Council talks about that fairly regularly. One of the ideas that they've had is to try and get people to really understand how great these big trees are that they have in their backyards, because they're privately owned. They can take them down at any time if they're not under land development. Is to do like contests where people submit their trees and we can identify like the largest oak or like the oldest. I mean, the photo contest was so much fun, like having people measure their trees and sending them in and doing a contest to see, where, like if we can figure out what's the oldest tree in Niskayuna, what's the biggest one of each type, that kind of thing, so that people can really take pride in the types of trees they have in their yard, because they have to choose to save them unless they're under land development. But this is a very important part of the subdivision review. Like, if a majority of the trees were shown to be clear cut, the planning board may have changed the configuration of the lots based upon that. Like, these were supposed to be very treed lots. So I don't know. It's a tough situation at any time, but we could look at the code again. It seems like this one's moving forward.
Okay.
And then the other thing the Tree Council has been working really hard on, they've had a couple of meetings with Ace Hardware working on their landscaping. So trying really hard to get a bunch more trees over there. It's a really I like that Ace Hardware. It's, I think, shaped up to be a very nice store. I go over there a bunch, but their outside storage and their landscaping we're still working on it.
All right.
So Conservation Advisory Council, had 2 people come in under privilege of the floor. One of them was Portia, who's on our Climate Smart Community Task Force. And they were bringing information to the Conservation Advisory Council preliminarily on leaf blowers. And I have to say, like, I was not aware of most of the information that they gave us. I was thinking that leaf blowers are noisy and people don't typically like them. And there are places, I think, that have banned leaf blowers because they're noisy. But they had a lot of really interesting information about actually like the emissions that come out of leaf blowers that you don't even realize, that I didn't know, like, because it's a 2-stroke engine. And there's no filters or mufflers on anything, so you're sort of breathing the exhaust that comes right out of an engine, like right into your
The gas
face.
leaf blowers.
Yeah, so it's really, I was amazed at some of the information that they had brought to us. If you guys are interested, please listen to the privilege of the floor part of the Conservation Advisory Council. I think as part of the pesticide-free lawn program, or trying to get people to manage their lawns in a more environmental way, the Tree Council will take a look at the leaf blowers and see if there's some recommendations we can give to the town board on them. And then we talked about this before. The grant from the Niskayuna Community Foundation was accepted, and so we have identified the contractor that we want to move forward with, and we're proceeding with the NRI. Hopefully we'll get that all signed and ready to go and started in January. Got a lot of stuff to do in January. The Climate Smart Communities Task Force had a meeting last week, and there's two. Well, the stretch code we already talked about. There's, I think, something that was very exciting that came from meeting with the people who are trying to move the CCA forward, and that is there's a campaign right now called Solarize Albany. Although it's called Solarize Albany, it applies to anywhere in the Capital District. And it's very similar to when we did Solarize Schenectady, and a group of people in Schenectady went through all the different types of solar rooftop installation, picked a contractor, picked a program, found financing for people, and then rolled it out. And if 10 people in your community signed up, you would get points or a reimbursement from NYSERDA. which we did. That was one of our high impact action items that got us $100,000 from NYSERDA a little while ago, which we used to update all our LED lights and get a new boiler for the town.
Mhm.
So this program, it looks great, and it can apply to Niskayuna. So what I would like to do, and I can keep you guys in the loop on emails, is submit to NYSERDA that we want to enter into the Solarize Albany campaign, and then we'll have to do some rollouts, like email blast to people. This is for community solar, so not having solar panels on your roof, but for if you don't like, I looked at getting solar panels on my roof, but they told me I had to take 5 trees down, and you can imagine my response to that. Nope. But if you don't want to take your trees down, or you don't have a good roof for solar, you can buy solar panels in a field where they're all built, like you sort of rent space on them, and then you get a 10% discount on your energy bill. And so this Solarize Albany campaign would be letting people know that they can purchase these solar panels and they get an automatic 10% discount on their energy bills. Doesn't matter who's your supplier, doesn't matter if you have Green Mountain or anything. It's
And it
just a
doesn't
credit.
matter if you have them on your property.
It doesn't matter if you have them on your property.
That's nice to know.
I think.
A lot of people can't.
So I'll double check and I'll make sure that we've got all of those questions answered. Maybe we could put a little FAQ up there. But anyway, if you go to that Solarize Albany campaign, they've got a ton of really good information, and they're clearly moving forward with all of the initiatives that we want to move forward with. So rather than invent the wheel, I think jumping on the bandwagon. So the next steps, and I think that'll be really fun for the Climate Smart Communities Task Force, is to roll that out. I don't want people to go and sign up yet because we have to get approval from NYSERDA before we get the deal. But you get a $200 gift card from Amazon for signing up too. So it's a really good deal. If you guys are okay with that, I want to move forward that when we can.
Yes. Yeah.
The Architectural Review Board's been meeting regularly. I know we have our new members been doing great. Clark is the one that normally follows up on them, but they had a pretty hefty agenda the other day. And they were working with, I think, Joel on the model home on Kelt's Farm, which I believe is submitted for a building permit. And then they were working with the people on Overlook Park subdivision for their new single-family homes, and they were working with Lisi on the Eastern Parkway. So it's a lot of good work there. The building department enforcement is, like Linda sent this to me right before my meeting. Typically, we have something like 750 permits a year, and right now we're at 870, and we still have a month left. So over 100 additional building permits this year.
Wow.
Has a lot. And then the other thing we've been working really hard on to try and get out before January 1st is the zombie home registration. We've been working on our lists and our contacts, but still need to send the letter out. So trying to send that out now so that we can have a registration date or start collecting before January 1st.
The additional building permits, are they kind of a little bit of everything, or are they more focused on decks or pools or?
Yeah, so I mean, you guys heard me say it. The pools were unbelievable this year. We normally get something like 40 pools, and we had 100. So I definitely think pools play a part in the additional building permits. But we also saw a lot of additions. And I think we talked about this a little bit before. People, I know my neighbor. Her office just canceled their lease in Albany, and they will never be bringing their people back to office space because they found that they can save a lot of money and that their workforce works just fine at home. But when people are at home all day, if they have an office, if they're working in it, eventually something has to change in their home. And if they're privileged enough to be able to make that change. So we have been seeing a lot of additions and changes to single family homes. And I think it's just my opinion that some of that is from the changes that happen to our world.
Are the additions also looked at by the Architectural Review Board?
They can be if they're large. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. I don't have an update on the Console Road sidewalk, but I promise you I won't take it off. I say this every meeting. I saw it in the minutes. But I did want to update you on the Rivers Ledge apartment and the park updates. I think I was meeting with them once a week. Matt came out there a couple times with me on trying to get the path paved, trying to get the pavilions up, trying to get the majority of the infrastructure in before spring. I know he scheduled a final meeting with us. Do you remember what that time? That's not today, is it? Is that today? Okay. anyway, we're meeting them one more time, but obviously with the weather, I'm not sure that all of that stuff is going to end up going in. So when you look at our May minutes, when we were hoping that the park would be done by summer,
Mhm.
we're still going to have some work to do in the spring. But if anybody's walked it, it really is looking good. They've got a lot of drainage in there. They've got a lot of overlooks. They've got a lot of the aqueduct blocks out. So
Yeah, there is a lot. He got a lot done.
they did.
It's amazing.
Contractors tend to be optimistic people just like me, and they're like, oh, we can do that, it'll get done, don't worry. But it's a lot of work. I think they
Mhm.
moved like hundreds of blocks. When's the meeting? Oh, it's Monday. Okay, thanks, Matt. So the apartments, I don't think anybody told me this. I think I read it in the paper. The lease date's pushed out to December 15th. I'm not even sure they'll be December 15th, but you can drive by and see they're very close to being leased. They've got a lot of leases in the pipe already. It's just a question of adopting all the utilities and making sure that they've got all of their approvals in place, and then we can
Mhm.
get people there. But I do think you'll see people in those buildings by January.
No kidding. Wow.
Yep, and they look good.
Hmm. And the landscaping's probably going to take some time, right?
Yeah, so they probably won't do any more landscaping this year. It's just a little too late. And they have, even in our park, there's some things you don't plant in the fall. They don't survive if you pull them up in the fall. So there's still a decent amount of spring planting to do in our park. And then I think you would see the landscaping for the majority of the buildings go in spring.
Okay.
I don't have anything for legal unless they're on the line and wanted to add something. I don't see them. And then Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, nothing to add this month.
Okay.
Very good. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'd be glad to second.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes,
Thank you.
enjoy.